morning sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows of Brood Awakenings, the kind of cafe that smelled of ambition and exhaustion. It was where the city's dreamers came to plot their next move, and where the tired came to steal a few minutes of warmth before facing another day. Behind the counter, Daniel Carter wiped down mugs with practiced rhythm. He had that look, a man worn by life but too stubborn to surrender to it. His brown apron was faded, his hands slightly calloused, and his eyes, deep, gray, and sleepless, told stories no one asked to hear. At 7:45 a.m., the first rush hit. The cafe filled with people in tailored suits and polished shoes, their conversations overlapping in a blur of deadlines, deals, and digital dreams. Daniel moved between tables like clockwork, taking orders, smiling faintly, always polite. But today, his mind wasn't in the cafe. It was in a hospital room across town, where his 7-year-old daughter Lily was waking up to another day of pain. The doctors said she needed a special heart surgery, one that could give her a real chance at life. But the insurance claim, the one that was supposed to help cover the operation, had been denied. Non-priority case, the letter had said. 2 words that shattered a father's world. He had written emails, made phone calls, begged for reconsideration. Nothing worked. The final rejection letter had been signed personally by Olivia Grant, CEO of Grant Tech Health, the parent company of the insurance provider. And now, fate had brought her right into his cafe. The bell above the door chimed softly. Daniel looked up. There she was, tall, confident, mid-40s, with the kind of presence that seemed to bend the room's gravity. Olivia Grant, in a tailored gray suit and pearl earrings, followed by 2 assistants juggling laptops and lattes. She was the kind of woman who moved through life as if every second was monetized, every breath scheduled. Daniel froze for a moment. The very woman who had dismissed his daughter's plea was now sitting at table 7, his section. He didn't believe in coincidences anymore. Maybe this was something else. Maybe it was his one chance to be heard. He took a slow breath, grabbed his notepad, and approached her table. "Good morning," he said softly. "Can I get you something to start with?" Olivia didn't look up right away. Her eyes stayed on her phone, fingers moving with the precision of someone constantly juggling 10 things at once. "Black coffee," she said. "No sugar. Make it quick, please. I have a meeting in 10. "Of course, Mom." Daniel nodded and walked back to the counter, his heart pounding. His mind raced. What could he possibly say to her? "Excuse me, you denied my daughter's surgery." No, she'd brush it off, tell him to contact the office. People like her didn't listen to people like him. He poured the coffee, his hands trembling slightly. The steam rose, curling like a whisper of courage. He looked back. She was still typing, her assistants whispering beside her, scrolling through spreadsheets. Something inside him shifted. A quiet decision. When he reached her table, Olivia finally glanced up. "Thank you," she said curtly. He hesitated. Then, with a single, deliberate motion, the coffee tipped forward, spilling across the table and splashing onto her white silk blouse. Gasps rippled through the cafe. Olivia jumped back, eyes wide with shock and anger. "Oh my!" she exclaimed, grabbing a napkin and dabbing furiously at the dark stain spreading across her chest. "Are you insane?" "I'm so sorry, ma'am," Daniel said quickly, though his voice held a tremor of something deeper. It was an accident. Her assistants rushed to her side, one of them snapping, "Get the manager!" The manager, Rita, appeared almost instantly, face pale. "Daniel, what on earth?" "I'll handle it," Olivia said sharply, her tone cutting through the chaos. She turned to him, eyes cold. "Do you realize what you've done? This blouse cost more than your week's paycheck." Daniel said nothing, just stood there, calm on the outside but burning within. "Pack your things," Rita whispered. "You're done, Daniel." "I can't." "Wait," Daniel interrupted quietly, his voice steady now. "Please, just give me 1 minute. I need to explain." Olivia crossed her arms, dripping coffee and fury. "You think you can talk your way out of this?" He looked at her straight in the eye. "No, ma'am. I just think you deserve to know why." Her expression flickered, curiosity slicing through the anger just for a heartbeat. "You have 60 seconds. Rita looked like she might faint. The whole cafe seemed to hold its breath. Daniel reached into the front pocket of his apron, fingers trembling slightly as he pulled out a small, creased photograph. He didn't hand it to her yet, just held it in his palm, the image of his little girl smiling up at him like a tiny beam of hope. "My daughter's name is Lily," he began softly. "She's 7 years old, loves drawing stars and singing out of tune. 2 months ago, doctors said she needed heart surgery, soon. Otherwise He stopped himself, swallowed hard. "She won't make it." Olivia's frown softened slightly. "And what does that have to do with— You run Grand Tech Health, don't you?" he said, his voice rising, just enough for the words to carry. "Your name's on every rejection letter, including the one that said my daughter's surgery wasn't a priority." A flicker of recognition passed across her face. Or maybe guilt. It was gone as fast as it came. I'm sorry for your situation, but that's not something I handle personally. There are procedures. Procedures, Daniel repeated bitterly. Right, systems, policies, numbers. But behind every number is a life. A little girl, my little girl. Her assistants looked uncomfortable now. The cafe had fallen completely silent, customers pretending not to stare but hanging onto every word. "I sent emails. I called, I begged," he continued. "No one even looked twice. So I thought, maybe the only way you'd notice me is if I ruined your perfect morning." The silence that followed was heavy, raw. Olivia's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at the coffee dripping onto the floor, at the photo now trembling in his hand. Her tone softened almost imperceptibly. "You shouldn't have done that." "I know," Daniel said, "but I didn't know what else to do." Rita stepped forward nervously. "Olivia, I'm so sorry," but Olivia raised a hand. Her gaze stayed locked on Daniel, searching his face. There was something there. Desperation, yes, but also sincerity. "Mr. Carter, was it?" He nodded. "Sit down," she said finally. "Tell me everything." Rita blinked. "Wait, what?" "Take a break, Daniel," Olivia said, quieter now. "You have my attention." And for the first time that morning, Daniel felt the tightness in his chest ease just a little. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of his shift, but the start of something bigger. As Lily ran off to put her drawing on the fridge, Jake looked out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, he knew, Catherine was probably still awake, trying to make things right in the only way she knew how. Maybe that was enough. Maybe some lessons had to come wrapped in pain to mean anything at all. The next morning, Catherine stood in front of her board, presenting her new initiative. She spoke differently this time, slower, more deliberate, her voice softer but firmer. "We can't measure success by profit alone," she said. "We measure it by the lives we touch and the ones we protect." Some rolled their eyes. Others listened, but Catherine didn't care. For the first time, she wasn't performing. She was changing. And in a small cafe across town, Jake poured another cup of coffee, steady hands, clear mind, feeling at last that something good had grown from the ashes of what had been lost. Sometimes, redemption didn't come in grand gestures. Sometimes it came in quiet understanding. In the moment, a man stopped hating, and a woman started feeling again. And somewhere, in the soft spaces between forgiveness and regret, Emma Turner's memory lived on, not as a tragedy, but as a reminder that even the smallest act of mercy can change the world. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air in the cafe felt heavy, the chatter of other customers fading into a distant hum. Even the smell of coffee, warm and familiar, now carried a strange tension, like the room itself was holding its breath. Olivia Grant, the CEO who'd built an empire on logic, precision, and efficiency, sat across from a man whose entire world had collapsed because of one of her company's decisions. Daniel sat down slowly, his hands folded over the photograph of Lily. The edges of the photo were worn, the corners curling, as though he had held it too many times in too many waiting rooms. "Go on," Olivia said, her voice low, cautious now. He slid the photograph across the table. In it, a small girl beamed up at the camera, her missing front tooth making her smile even brighter. "That's my daughter, Lily," he said. "She turned 7 last month. I promised her that when she gets better, we'd go to the ocean. She's never seen it before." Olivia picked up the photo, studying it. Something in her chest twisted, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Daniel went on. "Lily was born with a congenital heart defect. The doctors have been monitoring her since she was a baby. For years she was okay. A few hospital visits, regular checkups, medicine. But 3 months ago, she collapsed while playing at school. The doctor said she needs surgery. Not next year. Not someday, now." He paused. His voice trembled, but his gaze stayed steady. "The operation costs more than I make in a year. I filed an insurance claim, confident it would help. I did everything right, filled out the forms, provided documents, even sent letters from her doctor. I waited weeks. Then, one morning, I got the email." He took a deep breath, his voice barely above a whisper. "They said her case was classified as non-priority under the new cost-cutting policy, that it didn't qualify for full coverage." Olivia's throat tightened. She knew exactly what he was talking about. 2 months ago, she'd signed off on a new financial optimization plan. It was supposed to streamline claims, reduce inefficiencies. She remembered the meeting, long, clinical, full of graphs and percentages. Not once had anyone said the word child. "I tried calling," Daniel said. "I spoke to people in customer service, managers, anyone who'd listen. I begged them to put me in touch with someone higher up, but they all said the same thing. I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing we can do." He gave a hollow laugh. "Nothing we can do. Funny, isn't it? How easy those words come when it's not your child's life hanging in the balance." Olivia set the photo down, her hand trembling slightly. Around them, the cafe had grown quieter, though no one dared interrupt. "You have to understand," she began slowly. "We handle thousands of cases every week." "It's not personal, not personal," Daniel cut in. His voice was soft but sharp, the kind of quiet that demanded attention. "My daughter can't walk up a flight of stairs without gasping for air. She cries because she thinks she's the reason I work so much. She says, 'Daddy, I'm sorry you have to be tired for me.'" His voice cracked. "So yes, Ms. Grant, it's personal." Olivia looked down. For the first time in years, she didn't have an answer ready. She didn't have data to justify the pain in front of her. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said quietly. "The policy wasn't meant to hurt families like yours." "But it did," Daniel replied. "And I couldn't think of any other way to make you see that, to make you feel it." Olivia exhaled slowly, staring at the coffee stain drying across her blouse. The dark mark almost looked poetic now, a symbol of guilt that refused to fade. After a long silence, she said, "Where is she now?" "At St. Mary's Children's Hospital," Daniel said. "Room 402. She's been there for 3 weeks. Every day she asks me if the doctors have good news. I tell her soon. I tell her Daddy's doing everything he can." His voice softened. "I don't know how much longer I can lie to her." Olivia pressed her lips together, fighting back the sting in her eyes. She was used to making impossible decisions, firing people, restructuring departments, closing deals worth millions. But nothing had ever made her feel this small, this human. "Give me her full name," she said finally, pulling out her phone. Daniel blinked, unsure. "What?" "Her name, her doctor, the hospital, everything. Why?" "Because," she said, looking him in the eye, "I'm going to fix this." Daniel hesitated, searching her face for any trace of pretense. But what he saw there wasn't pity, it was conviction. Real, human conviction. He gave her the details quietly. She typed them down, her hands moving faster now, her expression firm. "I'll call the head of claims directly," she said. "And then the hospital. The surgery will be approved within the hour." "You can really do that?" he asked, disbelief cracking through his exhaustion. She met his gaze. "I can, and I will." The next morning, Daniel sat by Lily's bedside, watching the rise and fall of her tiny chest. Machines beeped softly around her, a fragile symphony of life. The nurse entered the room with a smile. "Mr. Carter," she said, "we just received an update from the insurance provider. The surgery's been approved. Full coverage. The surgeon's scheduling it for this weekend. Daniel froze. Wait, what? It's all official, she said warmly. Apparently a direct order from the top. He turned away for a moment, tears welling in his eyes. For the first time in months, he could breathe. He looked at Lily, who stirred and opened her eyes. Daddy, she whispered sleepily. Yes, sweetheart. Why are you crying? He smiled through the tears. Because we're going to see the ocean soon. A week later, after Lily's successful surgery, Daniel received a letter. It wasn't from the hospital this time. It was from Olivia Grant. Dear Mr. Carter, I owe you an apology, not just for Lily's case, but for every person whose story was reduced to a line on a spreadsheet. I've spent years making decisions that looked right on paper but felt wrong in the heart. You reminded me what those decisions really mean. I've reinstated the pediatric emergency fund we once cut. I've personally approved reviews for every denied child case under our care. It's not enough, but it's a start. Thank you for making me see beyond the numbers. Give Lily a hug for me. And tell her I hope she loves the ocean. Olivia Grant. Daniel folded the letter carefully, tears falling freely now. He looked out the hospital window, the morning light spilling in just like that day in the cafe. But this time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt like hope. 2 months later, Daniel kept his promise. Standing barefoot on the sand, Lily ran ahead of him, squealing as the waves kissed her feet for the first time. He watched her, alive, laughing free, and whispered to the wind, "Thank you." Somewhere across the city, Olivia sat by her window, watching the sunrise with a cup of coffee in her hands. No cream, no sugar, just black. And this time it tasted like redemption.